In this video, I'll go over how to employ mid-semester reviews in the undergraduate classroom. This is a student-centered design technique that builds classroom connections through the intentional co-creation of course content. Instead of being treated as passive learners, the mid-semester review engages students as both learners and teachers. Today, I will briefly cover reasons for implementing mid-semester reviews and some background on the technique. Next, I will go over how I collected mid-semester reviews in my undergraduate courses and provide samples of student feedback that discuss the mid-semester review. I implemented mid-semester reviews in all 4 courses I taught at Loyola University Chicago in the 2021-2022 academic year, which was also my first year at the university. Although this technique is useful for both veteran and novice teachers, I highly recommend it for new instructors and faculty because the technique allows you to improve your teaching prior to receiving the all-important end-of-course reviews. I learned the technique of mid-semester reviews from Kristen Landau, a fellow anthropology colleague, while I was adjusting to the classroom culture at Alma College in Michigan. I have since built on that knowledge through the many wonderful resources available on mid-semester reviews through the Faculty Center for Ignatian Pedagogy website. I highly recommend reviewing those sources. I imagine that you, the viewer, might have some good ideas on what types of learning techniques work best for you. And I'm willing to bet this is knowledge undergraduate students also have about themselves. The mid-semester review builds on this premise by asking students for feedback while a course is taking place. Like an anthropologist doing fieldwork in a foreign culture, your role as an instructor is to actively listen and learn from your interlocutors, in this case, students in the classroom. They become your teachers, and you must be willing to engage in honest, yet still critical reflection. Beyond reflection, you must also be ready to implement changes to your course content and instructional method, hence the idea of co-creation. Mid-semester reviews are flexible in terms of delivery and what can be assessed. You can check in with students at any point during a course and as much as you deem necessary. Feedback can be collected on paper or through online surveys, such as those available in a learning management system or websites like SurveyMonkey. The types of questions you ask can entail a numerical assessment or require written feedback. I find it helpful to think in terms of an exam when determining the method of delivery. What is the size of your course, and how much time can you devote to reviewing student responses? I would also argue that anonymity of respondents is a must. Student reluctance to provide negative feedback is certainly justified because teachers are human and our feelings do get hurt, which may lead to negative bias, conscious or otherwise, towards students. So I always collect anonymous feedback, but some students do tell me outright which review is theirs. Here's an example, here's a sample questionnaire that I use in my own courses. No need to read the questions, I will go over them, and this sample form is available online as an additional resource through the Faculty Center for Ignatian Pedagogy. A quick Google search will also reveal many great resources as well. When selecting questions, I try to be honest with myself. If you ask a question, you must be ready for a response. You must also be willing to adopt changes based on student feedback. So if you're particularly sensitive about some aspect of your teaching, maybe don't ask students for their feedback on that subject. Well, at least not until you're ready. The questions I ask in my mid-semester reviews tend to be general, but you can always ask more specific questions about your course. I collect handwritten feedback because my largest course has 35 students. It is rare that everyone will take the time to fill out a review, and when they do, the feedback is not always detailed. So instead of working in a learning management system, I print out my review forms. The questions are organized to start with positive feedback and transition to suggested improvements. Here are the questions from a 100-level survey history course that I teach called Ancient Worlds. First, I ask, what do you like about the course so far? This is followed by, what would you like to see or do more of in class? Sometimes students' responses build from question 1. Other times they introduce new information. I've had students answering question 1, they like the course content, and in question 2, state that they want to do more online game-based learning or see more videos. Next, we get to the difficult part. What do you not like about the Ancient Worlds course? This is followed by the all-important question, what improvements would you suggest? Last, I provide room for any other comments and suggestions. Once I've collected the student feedback, I read it like a set of peer reviews. I read through them once, and then I pause to process my emotions. Like a peer review, student feedback can widely diverge. I tend to look for commonalities across the responses and make sure to address or at least acknowledge points that are raised by multiple students. As I review the evaluations for a second time, I make a list of themes or comments and organize them according to popularity. I do this for each question. For more individual comments, it is still important to consider whether the student is making a vital suggestion or contribution to the course. If there are individual comments that I feel need to be addressed, then I add them to my list. With the list of comments assembled, now comes time to consider changes and discussing the results with the class. Here is an example of a slide with the review results that I shared with my Ancient World students. I began by discussing what they liked about the course. Highest on the list was the diversity of historical content, the main course text, and Kahoot, which is a game-based learning program that I use for exam review. After affirming with students that we would continue or do more of what they enjoyed, I turned to areas of improvement. Here we ran into the issue of divergent comments. While some students enjoyed watching videos in class, others wanted less or shorter videos. In these situations, I find it helpful to ask the class to elaborate more on their thoughts. In the end, you might not be able to make everyone happy. Nevertheless, students are often willing to concede a claim if you're honest and openly discuss the contrasting viewpoints. For another example, many students wanted to engage in more group work and active learning. However, following the pandemic switch to online instruction, this was our first semester of in-person classes. Consequently, some students, including the professor, me, were wary of group work because of the potential for spreading COVID. As much as large segments of the class wanted more group work, they were willing to concede that we needed to maintain social distance. However, I was able to incorporate more place-based learning during the semester so the students could engage in more active learning. In the end, students appreciated my use of the mid-semester reviews, as they state in my end-of-course reviews. One student in Ancient World said, "Thank you for reaching out to us to hear our feedback mid-semester and actually trying to make changes based on it. I feel like I learned better due to some of the changes made, so thank you very much." Double exclamation point. A student from another course commented, "He sent out a mid-course evaluation of the class and made changes in response to what he received in the evaluations, which was extremely nice." It probably helps that I revisited the mid-semester reviews at the end of the semester to remind students of how the course had changed. Overall, students appreciate mid-semester reviews because it gives them the chance to voice their opinions about the course with the idea that you can adjust to improve learning outcomes and foster student engagement in the classroom. Thanks for watching. Now go forth and co-creatively learn.